signed and submitted to our officer over here. There are several questions which have been submitted already via email, and I'll address those during the course of the item. Okay, can I now welcome you all once again? The apologies, we have none. All agendas have been circulated. It does not have to go around. Can you please share agendas with your neighbour next to you? Okay. No apologies tonight, so disclosure of conflicts of interest from councillors. Any conflicts of interest from councillors?
Yes.
Councillor
Now
Gregory.
I have one disclosure of a conflict of interest. It's in relation to item 14.3, the CEO 2016 and 2017 performance criteria, and it's a direct interest that I'm declaring, and it's in regards to a pending legal matter concerning the CEO.
And you'll be vacating the chamber for that item. Councillor Greco, you'll be vacating
leaving the chamber.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other conflicts from councillors?
No.
If not, we'll move on to item 4, confirmation of minutes of the previous council meetings. Move Councillor McCarthy, second Councillor Lee. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. We'll now go to public question time, item 5. And I'll commence with those questions already submitted via email early in the day or last week. Manny Spiteri, are you here this evening? Manny. Thank you, Manny. You've got 2 questions. Can I ask you to read out your question? I'll provide an answer. There's 2 questions you've lodged. So over to you. I'll read them out then, okay, and provide you with the response. Okay. So your question to me, and I won't read the preamble because we don't take preambles. Question is, will the council conduct a cultural impact assessment on how the development will affect, change, alter, influence, modify, transform and refashion the cultural essence and nature of the current Preston Market visit experience? If so, when will it be available? If not, why not? On such an important cultural icon, what will be going on in relation to this unprecedented change? Our answer is, any planning application received will be processed in accordance with the requirements of the Darebin Planning Scheme, and specifically the Preston Market Incorporated Plan. It is understood that you have been directed to a copy of the Preston Market Incorporated Plan and have been given a full opportunity to discuss the contents and implications of this plan, together with how it binds council to support the redevelopment of the market site in a way that accords with the plan. As you're aware, there are 2 current applications with council, and there is also a comprehensive set of plans supporting reports that explain the proposal in full. Please note it is the applicant's responsibility and not council's to document the full social, economic and environmental impacts. Council's role will be to review this information, and this review will be documented in an open and transparent manner. You are welcome any time during office hours to view these plans and support information. The issue of cultural significance has been responded to in a council report dated the 5th of October 2015, with council also writing to the Minister for Planning highlighting the cultural significance of the market site. The Minister for Planning has declined to pursue any interim heritage controls on council's behalf. In terms of progressing any planning application, council is duty bound to assess the merits of any application based on the current content in the planning scheme, and at present this encourages the complete redevelopment of the market, subject to the fresh food components being maintained on site. So there's a response to that. And you had a second question in relation to parking. What and how is the Darebin Council going to provide the visitor parking and shoppers with appropriate parking facilities as part of these guidelines? These being, prepare guidelines for the preparation of travel plans to developers for large sites. An assessment of the adequacy of parking will be undertaken through the planning process in line with Darebin's planning scheme and the associated decision guidelines outlined in clause 5206. So we can provide that with you to submit to your representatives as well. Thank you, Manny, for those. Now, Marion Harper, you're here, Marion. You've got questions too, Marion. Do you want to read those out, Marion? Thank you. So if you could commence your first one, please.
I think I've done loud enough voice.
Yeah, you can stand up, please. Yeah, thank you.
Does council plan to provide the community with full details of developers' plans for redevelopment of Preston Market, as we are concerned that current proposals could have significant impact on the multicultural amenity and the integrity of our current market and its traders?
Will council support the community in its public efforts to protect the market from being turned into a sterile apartment supermarket overcrowded shadow of a Darebin icon beloved by the whole community?
Thank you, Marion. That's a good question. Our response is both current applications will be reported to the Planning Committee by the end of the year. Retaining the fresh food market is a strong emphasis within the planning scheme, and Council remains committed to applying this in any decision it makes under the planning scheme. The planning requirements for the redevelopment of the Preston market were part of a thorough consultation and engagement process prior to being incorporated into the Darebin planning scheme. The Darebin planning scheme fully supports the retention of the Preston market. And you have another question too, Marion? No, thank you very much. Okay. We also have Serena. Are you here, Serena, this evening? Thank you, Serena. You've got some questions here too.
Thank you. I just noticed that there's some people out in the corridor here that are interested in the item about Ruthven, and I wonder if they could be given seats so they can come in.
Back room's open, they can see the screen there. It's in the other room.
Right, okay.
Question?
Okay. I have two questions, one that was submitted earlier in the day and one I've just submitted. In the interest of transparent governance, will Council bring forward the agenda item 14.3, purchase of former Ruthven Primary School and Lakeside Secondary School sites report to accommodate nearby residents who are attending the meeting tonight? And will Council discuss and debate the report in public rather than in camera?
Thank you, Serena. Unfortunately, item 14.3 relates to the CEO 2016-17 performance criteria. Has nothing to do with Ruthven Primary.
I'm sorry.
I'm reading the question.
Please correct
No,
the
it's what I've got here.
right.
It's what I've got here. There is currently no agenda item titled purchase of former Ruthven Primary. Let me finish. I'm answering your question and then I'll respond more accordingly in detail. There's no agenda item titled purchase of former Ruthven Primary School and Lakeside Secondary School sites. If an urgent report is submitted and accepted, we will consider it. Serena?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just to foreshadow that, I will be moving that agenda item be considered up front in the meeting.
You've declared 14.3.
No, I'm talking in relation to the question that's been asked in regards to...
14.3 is what I've got on the list here, Councillor Greco.
Yeah,
I understand there's another matter, but we can include that later on.
What I'm saying, Mr. Mayor, is that if the urgent matter is considered here...
Yes, it has to be accepted by Council.
Suspending sustaining orders and asking that the matter be considered as an open item.
Thank you. So that probably addresses that question because you've got it in the wrong order completely.
Perhaps, but everyone's looking at... Well, I'm looking at an agenda that I got off the internet, and it's different to the agenda that you've got for tonight's meeting.
No.
But that's okay.
Next question.
Thank you. The following question is relevant should there be a delay in drawing up an agreement for the purchase of the former school sites at the former Ruthven Primary School and Lakeside Secondary College. In order to avoid contravention of Section 93A, Conduct of Council during election period of the Local Government Act 1989, will the Council, if necessary, undertake to write to Minister Hutchins in accordance with Section 93A2 of the Act to request an exception from the prohibition upon making a major policy decision during the election period for a general election?
Thank you very much. We'll have to take that item on notice and respond to you accordingly. Thank you for that. If you want to hand that back to... Where's Occy gone? Any other questions? Next question is from Terry Mason. Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. I'm asking this question on behalf of many of the people who are here and in the overflow room and the community, seeking a written response to the following question on the disposition of the Department of Education school sites. Noting that the value of the two former school sites at Ruthven and Lakeside is a matter of public interest and must at some point be disclosed for audit purposes, can you please tell the public the Valuer General's valuation for each site? And is it the Council's responsibility in these negotiations to make a realistic offer for the land? What is the Council's current highest offer for each site?
Thank you very much for that, Terry. Look, the matter is subject to an urgent business item we're considering tonight. I understand Councillor Greco may decide to bring that item forward and also be heard in public and not in camera. Thank you. Next question we've had from Damien Kingsbury. Damien, you hear this? Thank you, Damien. Do you want to read your question out, please?
Your Worship, I'm happy for you to read the question.
Thank you very much, Damien. Question from yourself is, To demonstrate that they are not acting in bad faith towards Darebin voters, will sitting councillors intending to stand in the forthcoming council elections formally commit at this meeting, if elected, to remaining in council for the full forthcoming term? Unable to answer that question yet. Sorry about that. Good try, but we can't answer it.
Your Worship, follow-up question. It's a simple one. Is the intention of councillors who are intending to run for council to demonstrate whether they intend to sit for the full term of the forthcoming council if elected? It's a very simple question. I'm sure all the councillors understand it.
Those who are running will be able to answer in due course. I can't speak on their behalf, and I think it's probably a little bit premature to ask that sort of question. But I understand the intent, and I don't blame you for asking it, but it's probably a bit premature. But thanks for putting that on notice. Thank you. Any other questions? We have Juliet Hall. Is Juliet here? Juliet, thank you, Juliet. If you want to read your question out.
The question's relating to the Merry Creek Bridge project. Given the existing development at 200 Beavers Road and the proposed development at 198 Beavers Road, those developments are expecting to bring hundreds of new residents to the immediate vicinity. Will Council be seeking a financial contribution from those two developers to help fund a new bridge over Merry Creek near the end of Beavers Road in Northcote?
Thank you. Very good question. It's an item considering tonight too. I'll provide this response to you. Due to the preliminary nature of the project, Council does not have the power to mandate a contribution toward the project from the developers. The state government legislation and supporting guidelines set out how Council can obtain contributions from developers. This criteria is strict and requires a rigorous level of assessment analysis, which cannot be done for a project that is entirely under its investigation stage. This may be an option available in the future should Council proceed with development contributions plan. Something we'll certainly consider. Thank you. And I understand we've had some questions submitted this evening too, prior to the commencement of the meeting, so I'll read those out and attempt to provide some answers too. Helen McDonald, in relation to the bridge over the Merry Creek, will Council act swiftly to design and construct a new bridge over the Merry Creek, given the very real safety issues to pedestrians and cyclists crossing via the road? That's a matter we're considering tonight to see if we actually can proceed to the next stage. So I can't provide more information apart from what we're looking at tonight as an agenda item. This is from Michael Brennan from Reservoir. When will Council fix the sound system in these chambers so all can hear? I hope you can all hear me, but if you're not, thank you. Oh, well, it's fixed then. There's your question answered. Okay, so thanks very much for that. Hopefully we'll be all good now. A couple of more questions here. Peter Thompson, in relation to the VicPol resources in personnel for the Reservoir Preston area. As in 2010, as per my correspondence to the then Mayor, myself, I again asked you to support a community-driven effort through RCAG to boost police numbers in Reservoir, Preston, by writing to the Divisional Inspector at Preston VicPol at your earliest convenience. This need is pressing and can be provided through Action Street Crime Stats from the community. Thank you, Peter. We'll actually consider that, and I'm actually meeting with the District Inspector this week, but there's also an agenda item which Councillor Walsh will be speaking to later.
Yes, that's what I was.
So I'm sure you're looking forward to providing more content there, Councillor Walsh. Thank you, Peter. Another question from Peter Thompson. On the 1st of August, I raised a question during public question time, to provide the defunct Reservoir Library building under suitable terms, of course, for use as the office cultural space for the Wurundjeri Tribe Land Compensation and Cultural Heritage Council. I therefore resubmit this request again in my capacity as a convener of the Darebin Reconciliation Action Group. I await your consideration decision by return correspondence. Thank you, Peter. I'll write to you with a full response to that. Okay? And we'll keep these because they're ours now. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes question time. We'll now go on to tonight's agenda. You can stay for the duration of the meeting or leave at the conclusion of the item you have come for. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'll call for a suspension of standing orders in order for us to consider item number 9, urgent business.
We don't need to suspend standing orders. We can just rejig the order.
Okay, well,
by resolution.
By resolution. Not a problem, Mr.
Councillor Greco.
I'll second that.
Can you stand again, please, and ask what you want to do?
Yeah, well, I move that we reorder the agenda in order for us to consider urgent business items as the next item of business.
Seconder?
Yes, I'll second that.
Second,
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Lawrence, a second. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour to accept that? Thank you very much.
I'd like to move it, Mr Mayor.
Let's first of all hear it. We've had an item circulated as an urgent business matter from the CEO in relation to an update on the negotiations of the surplus Victorian Government Land Department of Education sites at Ruthven and Lakeside. Before we actually do that, I think we might get a bit of a preamble from the officer. Sorry, I need to accept it into the agenda too, so move Councillor Lee. Move Councillor Villala, seconded Councillor Lee. All those in favour? That's carried. It's been accepted, moved and so on.
And so I'll move it.
A bit of preamble first so the members of the gallery can know what we're doing, because they haven't got a copy of it.
Just for the purpose, I assume Councillor Villala will want this heard in an open forum rather than as a confidential item as per the recommendation. So do we need to move another motion to bring it out of the confidential part of the agenda?
Yes.
You have to amend your motion to actually say that it's no longer a
Well, I'd like to amend my motion to say that it's no longer a confidential matter, but that that will be discussed in public.
It's not an in-camera item, it's an open...
Sorry, just another point, just referring to the recommendation. The recommendation requires in point 2 for the mover to nominate one of the options as listed in the report. So I'm just wondering if that would be the appropriate time for the mover to include that point before there's a seconder? I
think we'll wait for the preamble and some content first, so members of the gallery know what we're discussing and understand the item we're looking at. Okay. Mr. Acting CEO, do you want to give us a bit of a preamble on this matter so the members of the gallery can understand what we're doing?
Sure. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor. So the urgent report which you have in front of us, which councillors were provided with this evening and briefed on the matter, is, I guess, the late on Friday we received the final valuation for the Ruthven and Lakeside sites from the department. So this report presents those valuations. It presents some background into the history on how we've got to now with those sites, and also it presents a number of options for councils to consider around the purchasing or otherwise of those sites. So the options are considered in the report as 4 different options of variances of purchase price and land size, and they are presented for council consideration. There is also a financial consideration if council was to decide to purchase those sites, what it would mean financially for council, which would be part of the decision-making context, and some ongoing maintenance and management costs as well and requirements if council did decide to purchase those sites. So it's really I guess the development over the last few months, and we've arrived at this point with this report.
Thank you. Okay, over to councillors. Let's commence the debate. Councillor Villala.
As I mentioned, Mr Mayor, I am happy to move it, obviously, and pleased that it's been discussed in public. And the recommendation has a number of options, and the option that I would like to put forward is option 2. I think that's the one where it's all of Ruthven site, and that section of Lakeside, of the former Lakeside site. Would that be correct?
That's it.
That's option 2.
Mr Mayor, I'm happy to second that with the amendment that we drop point 1, which is contradictory to option 2.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Order 2, 3, 4 and 5 accordingly.
Yeah,
that's
and that
correct.
was advised by the officers. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Mr Mayor, first of all, I'd like to thank the officers who have been negotiating in good faith on this matter. It's been a long journey, a very frustrating journey for us councillors, but not to mention a very frustrating journey for the community. This has been going on since the beginning of my term and prior to that, and I know that a lot of people in the gallery here tonight have lived this issue for longer than that and taken it, and it's a very, very important issue to them. So I'm pleased to recommend that council, through its open reserves fund, allocate the amount that it has been estimated at, and that is that all the Ruthven site is, was it 7 million?
6.9
Sorry,
million.
6.9 million. It's been valued at 6.9 million, and the Lakeside site has been valued at 270,000. The report indicates, Mr Mayor, that we do have the funds to acquire it through our public open space reserve, and that it will not, if we do allocate that money, which is what it's for, it will not cause any detriment or any negative budget implications in this financial year. And the report recommends that council proceed with the purchase of the Lakeside site, and so as far as the budget is concerned, it's all okay. And so, Mr Mayor, we've done all the due diligence. The community has waited long enough. The council has, on the whole, been supportive of this. We did try really hard to stick to a principle of not having to purchase public land again, and I don't resolve from that for 1 minute. I think we made the point clear that the residents, through their taxes, should not have to pay for public land again, which is their right to hold. Unfortunately, we lost that battle, but I think the point was made. But I think we have to realise that this is the end of the road. There are no regrets really, because we did fight on that principle, and I think we are all comfortable in this chamber, Mr Mayor, that we've done all that we can, and the price that the community, the public, is expected to pay for public land is probably about as best as it's going to get. So I just want to thank the community for coming on board with this, because we have the community support and we had a number of public meetings. I don't think we would be at this particular point in time, no matter, despite the best efforts of council, we really needed the community on board, and I want to thank them for their time and energy. This is a really important issue and one that we deserve to win. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bellot. I might get you to actually read out so that the community actually know the exact recommendation as listed in the report, including pursue option 2, the figures. And just a note, we're not buying all of Lakeside, just part of Lakeside.
That's right, it was just that.
So if you can read out the recommendation, the community can actually understand.
Shall I read that recommendation with the amendments? Yep.
Yes, please.
Okay. So, which is option 1 now. Point 1. Purchase option...
Pursues.
2. Pursue option 2, which is purchase part of the Lakeside and all of Ruthven site. Council, do I need to read all of it?
Yeah, please.
Council may resolve to offer to purchase both sides of the land from the Department of Education and Training for community use. This option discussion is the same as for option 1, except that option 2 would involve the acquisition of the whole of Ruthven site.
Sorry, just to be clear, Mr Mayor, the text is at the top of page 6.
Page 6, where it says...
Page 6, alternative
I'll read it out. I'll read it out.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, because I'm not too sure what to talk about.
It says, pursue option 2, which says acquire the former Ruthven Primary School site at 7476 Glasgow Avenue, Reservoir, estimated to be approximately 30,000 square metres in area from the Victorian Government for an amount of $6.9 million plus GST and costs. Okay? Now,
so I can continue with the rest?
No, there's
and
do we need to read out?
also,
We don't need to read out the rest, Mr.
and
Mayor.
the part of Lakeside Secondary, $270,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, they're the main figures I think people want to know.
Yeah, sorry, yep.
Okay.
I'm happy to second it, Mr Mayor.
It's already
Kim seconded. Councillor Lawrence seconded. You want to speak?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, this journey has been going on for quite some time, since the Education Department unilaterally extinguished a joint use agreement that had been in place for this site to be used as public open space for 17 years when they closed Ruthven Primary. There's been a lot of discussions about prices, and I suppose this is a good time to start talking about what they were. The Liberal Party wanted to sell it to us for $10 million.
Can you stick to this at the end, Councillor?
Yes.
No, you're going back history.
We're now getting to a point where we were offered last year for 6.7 Ruthven, and tonight, at the last hour, at the guillotine hour of this term of council, we had no choice, we had no bargaining time, we don't have 1 week's leave to do some negotiation, we have to commit tonight to 6.9. Now, I think we can all have discussions about the Education Department's role in this later on, but at this point we need to conduct a transaction. In relation to the land at Lakeside, we have a happier discounting scenario where original offers talking about $900,000 have been dropped to $270,000. That's a major discount. I was hoping to see 5.5 on both sides. I was hoping to still bargain for another 2 weeks. That's my nature, but unfortunately the timelines and set up by this council mean we must commit tonight. Now, I'm sure in future, in 20 years' time, we won't worry about the extra 1.5 million that we've had to spend.
20 seconds.
And that's why we need to do this.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Any other speakers? Councillor Greco.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I want to speak in favour of this, but I also want to include an additional point, and that, and I'll read out the additional point, is that the council right to residents in the vicinity of Reuven and Lakeside side of council's agreement to purchase the land.
Mover and seconder are happy to accept it.
Absolutely.
Can you submit it to a Minutator?
I'll just talk mainly to that point that I've just included. We know that the community has been up in arms about this particular site, and rightly so. It's been a couple of years that the community has been battling in order to maintain this site, and I think it's only right that we directly inform the community of what the potential decision here of council will be, and that is to purchase these sites. I think the community deserves to be informed about council's decisions, because all along the way we've always said that we want to keep the community informed about what council does in relation to this important piece of land. So that goes to my points, my additional point about writing to the residents, and I think we can use the same area that we've used before in terms of informing the residents. The other point that I like to make, I think that I'm really happy that council is actually purchasing this land, and I think because at all costs we have to make sure that the land stays in public hands. Notwithstanding, and this is the sour point that I feel, notwithstanding that the land is already public land and that we've been forced to purchase land which is already public land. And I must say...
20 seconds.
Yeah, and I must say is that it's really unfortunate that the state government has actually forced our hand in order for us to buy this land at such a price. Whilst it is discounted, we have to remember it's always ratepayers' money in the end that's going towards purchase land. Anyway, having said that, we keep the land in public hands.
Thank you, Councillor.
And like that, we can ensure that the public has...
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor McCarthy.
I'd just like to propose a sixth point, if the mover and seconder will include it, because it hasn't been included in the recommendation so far. It would be point 6, that consideration, or point 5 now, in fact. Point 7 now, point 7. The consideration of planning and master planning for the Ruthven and Lakeside sites be referred to the 2017-18 budget process. That's not included in the report. It hasn't been read out. Yep, so happy to accept that.
Move and seconder happy. Thank you, Councillor McCarthy.
Happy to accept.
Thank you. Look, I just wanted to touch on the broader city element of this issue, which is that when you look at the location of the Ruthven Primary School site, it is the only green open space for residents, for I think 1,900 residents. It's the only green open space within 500 metres of their homes. In fact, for a much larger group of residents, about 2,500 residents, it is the only green open space of a significant size within their homes. Now, this is righting a wrong, and it's righting a wrong that's a historical wrong, because despite the fact that the primary school site was there and it was available for public use, council and previous councils had not provided for green open space within close proximity for residents in that part of Reservoir. And tonight, by virtue of expending close to $7 million on the Ruthven site, we're righting that wrong. But the point that I'd like to make, and it's not just about purchasing land, it's actually about making sure that that land is appropriate and available for the uses that the community wishes, is that we need to get on with actually developing a plan with the community for what's going to happen on that site. And there's been conversations about plantings, there's been conversations about playgrounds, there's been conversations about all sorts of things. But there's no point buying a piece of land unless you're going to make sure that the community has a major say in how it's going to be used. So that's why I've added the additional point, and thank you, mover and seconder, for agreeing to that, because that process has to get underway straight away and it needs to be funded in the next council budget. The other point, though, and this is the piece that can be missed easily, is that the land of the former Lakeside Secondary College is part of a continuous section of the Merry Creek Trail. And the concept that would have been lost to become the backyard of a development is terrifying. So I think we have righted the wrong on another front, which is the protection of the shared path and that Merri Creek frontage. And I think that's something we should be proud of.
If there's no further speak, Councillor Lee, something new to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too just want to raise two very small points, one of which is already been covered by Councillor McCarthy, which is the importance of preserving that strip of Lakeside College along the Merri Creek at a very substantially discounted price. That is a very vital piece of infrastructure linking in the northern part of the Darebin Creek Trail to the southern part of Darebin Creek Trail, and is used by recreational riders, walkers and other residents throughout the municipality, and it's vital that we maintain that as public open space. The other point I'd like to raise, which is outlined in point 5 of the report, which people in the gallery don't have access to, but I'm happy to read out that particular section. And I'll read the report as follows. With regards to the possible site contamination, it is expected that the Ruthven site will be transferred to Council with an environmental audit report which would clear the site for open space and community-based uses. Any clean-up works for residual hazardous waste materials on the site, such as asbestos, would need to be funded and managed by the Department of Education and Training. I think that's a very significant win, because as we all know, there are many contaminants on land that's been there for generations, and it will be unfair to our residents to have to clean up the mess that's been left over by the previous owners. So I think it's important that we press ahead to ensure the Department of Education and Training actually clean up this mess, metaphorically and literally, to ensure that that space is safe for community use.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Thank you. If there's no further debate, I'll put that item to a vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Members of the gallery, Council decided to purchase the former Ruthven Primary site in its entirety, and also the smidgen of... If I can finish, please. If I can finish. The former length of the site adjacent to Merri Creek, the old Lakeside secondary site. And we've secured it for the future generations of Darebin residents, and I don't think cost is the relevant matter here. I beg your pardon? Councillor Bellows, call for division. All those in favour, please stand. I name Councillor Bellello, Greco, Lawrence, Fontana, Williams, McCarthy and Lee. Those against, please stand. I name Councillor Cetus. Thank you. That concludes that item. Members of the gallery, you can stay or leave if you want to do so. We're still on urgent items. If you
I move resumption of standing orders.
no, we're not. Members of the gallery, if we can just keep the noise down, please. We're still in council meeting. We have another urgent item to consider.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, before we move to that item, can I just have a point of clarification in relation to the report, which was originally a confidential report, and we did consider it in open chamber. Will that report be attached to the minutes of this council meeting?
Mr. Acting CEO?
Through Mr. Mayor, yes it will.
Thank you.
So members of the community will have access to the full report content and recommendation.
Thank you.
We now have another urgent item to be considered. We're doing all the urgent items now.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So do I need to read out the motion?
Yeah, I don't have to read it out.
Yeah, because I wasn't. Just read out the motions, and in putting it that it be considered, that it's an urgent notice of motion regarding relief for Italian earthquake victims. Take notice of an ordinary meeting of council to be held on 5th of September. My intention to move that Darebin Council donate $10,000 to the Italian welfare organisation Comitas to aid victims of the earthquake in central Italy.
Thank you. And we need to accept that. So do we have a seconder for that, please? Do we have a seconder? Councillor Williams. I'll put that so we can accept that into the agenda. All those in favour? Carried. We now need someone to move and accept it. So Councillor...
So, yeah, I'll move the motion as
listed. The seconder?
And as read.
Seconder Williams. Thank you. Do you wish to speak to it now, Councillor Lawrence?
Sorry, before we hear from the mover, was this circulated via email to councillors in advance of the meeting?
It's an urgent item. It just...
I just was advised earlier that an urgent item I have wouldn't necessarily be able to be considered, so...
Well, we've accepted it, so...
Just a point of order, Mr. Mayor. Can this item be safely deferred to next meeting in order to find out more about Comitas, the organisation?
Yeah. I just want to know also, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure what Comitas is. If it's I'm not sure what committee actually Councillor Lawrence is referring to. because
Jacinta, you want to maybe add a bit
just
to it?
want to be clear of what the committee is, because I'm on a number of Italian committees, and I just want to know whether this is one of them.
Okay. Governance Officer?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Council has just resolved to accept the urgent item into the agenda. So if Councillor Lawrence wishes to defer it, he can, or if another council wish to an alternative motion to defer that as well. But it is actually accepted.
It's been accepted.
Just a point of clarification, if I may. I'm still not sure what the comitas, which one that is, because I need to know exactly which one it is in order for me to understand whether I potentially have a conflict of interest or not.
Well,
Because
I think you're
be-
aware it's an Italian welfare organisation based in
Right.
Australia. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually not an Italian welfare organisation, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
That's the
do you
point.
know? You can tell us
No,
what it is.
No, I'm not sure if it's that one. I'm not
Okay.
sure whether. Well, I'm not sure whether Councillor Lawrence is referring to COASID or
No, it's not COASID.
comites or
Not
comitas
COASID.
or which one. That's the point I'm trying
It's
to
not
get
COASID.
clarification.
Doesn't say COASID.
So, Mr Mayor, I'm a bit confused as to how we are supposed to proceed when we haven't been given notice of the motion, and that's fine, but we don't have any information available to us about who the organisation is. I'm completely sympathetic with the cause, but maybe $10,000 could be donated to another organisation. I'm not sure who else is operating in that space there. This seems highly irregular to be being asked to be making a financial decision when we haven't been provided with any background or other information. I suspect that ratepayers would probably expect councillors to have at least some information in front of them before they consider a financial contribution to anything. So I'm just asking through you, before we enter formal debate, if we can actually get some information, whether it's through Councillor Lawrence or through our officers, about what we're actually debating here.
Councillor Lawrence, you wish to add some more to it? So some clarity on the organisation? I think the intent's good.
It's really too late in the term for this, so I've moved the motion.
Yeah.
If it's seconded, we'll deal with it, and we can deal with it. But
all right.
I'm not going to play those games.
Yeah. All right.
Mr. Mayor, just as a point of, I would just like to declare a conflict because I'm not sure what that organisation is, and I don't want to implicate myself in, because I'm a member of a number of organisations, whether that is intended to be COASID or whether it's intended.
It's not COASID. It doesn't say COASID.
Which is not that organisation. That's up there. But notwithstanding that, I would therefore declare a conflict.
Right.
I think it would be. I'm a member of a number of Italian organisations, of which that may be one of them, and so as a result of that, I will abstain from the
Thank you.
decision,
Right.
based on the uncertainty around this particular motion.
When in doubt, get out. Fair enough.
So,
Councillor Villar.
Mr Mayor, I'm going to speak against it, if I may.
We haven't had them speak for it yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We're asking questions at the moment.
Okay.
Councillor Lee.
Yes, I'll just through you, Mr Mayor, I just wish to urge Councillor Lawrence to defer this item to the next ordinary council meeting. I believe we still have one left to consider this. The reason for that is that we have had numerous natural disasters in the term of this council, the bushfires that we've had in Australia, the earthquake in other parts of the world, floodings, and other humanitarian needs. And never have I seen in the 4 years of my term on this council that we've seen a on-the-spot donation without any prior notification to councillors. So I would urge Councillor Lawrence to reconsider this motion and defer to the next ordinary council meeting so that this council can be fully informed of the organisation and the intent behind that motion.
So you're asking for it to be deferred. Councillor Villar, question?
A statement.
No, question. He's asked for it to be deferred.
Sorry?
He wants to defer it.
Yeah. I want to defer it as well, but can I just state my reason why? Is that the intention is good, of course, and we have a very large...
Councillor Lawrence, do you wish to defer it or not? Yes or no?
No,
I just want to...
it's really...
He said
Can I
no.
just state why?
He
Because
said
I
no.
think we've got to be very careful where we donate money. And I know that some countries, the money doesn't actually get there. So we have to do our due diligence.
You're debating now. You're debating. So he said no. He's not accepting deferral. So we now go straight into debate.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I asked a question before, and I was offered either Councillor Lawrence to provide further information about who the organisation is or our officers. Now, I wasn't given the opportunity to hear that from our officers. Maybe they have some information about who the organisation is, but this is the first time in 8 years when I've been asked to make a decision about contributing financially to an organisation.
We've done it to Fiji earthquake appeals in the previous term.
done it a few times.
It's not the cause, Mr Mayor, it's the organisation.
Thank you. I'm going to go straight to debate now, okay? You can't provide him information, go to a debate and make a determination on this, because I don't think all night. I don't think you guys want either.
Well, could you at least allow the officers to provide some information?
There's no second.
Councillor Williams seconded. I've recorded Councillor Williams seconded. You've got the
Mr. Mayor,
floor.
I'm happy to put this on the
Just
table.
point of order, Mr Mayor. I believe Councillor Williams was seconding for the urgent motion to be omitted rather than for the motion
No, I
itself.
also seconded.
You seconded.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm chairing the meeting, guys. Councillor Lawrence, you've got the floor.
Mr. Mayor, there is a tragic situation that's been unfolding, and obviously there's a range of responses in terms of groups in Australia to this. Now, and there's obviously many people in Darebin with family members and relatives and friends caught up in these things. Now, I'm quite happy for councillors to come with different amendments and, you know, where you want to go and all that. But please, don't play these games with this. So, happy to put it, happy to have any amendments. We've given plenty of money to even just appropriate or relevant groups. So I find it disingenuous to play with the Italian community in this manner today. So I recommend the motion, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Councillor Williams, the seconder. Anything to add?
Look, this is a basic level of assistance that we're offering to emergency care of those who are actually in need, and this is a situation that I believe that's affected quite a number of people in Italy.
Okay.
It would be a good call.
Thank you. The debate is open. For or against? Can I take people who's interested in debating it? For or against?
Well,
Councillor Viola.
Yes,
2 minutes.
I'm speaking against it, Mr Mayor, because I think we need to do our due diligence. I agree with Councillor Bowley that we just need to make sure. I've never heard of this organisation, and we've got to be very careful because there have been a number of earthquakes in Italy, and I know that I think it was the one in Naples, a lot of the money didn't get there. So we've got to make sure that the organisations that we do give the money to does actually go to the victims. I think a bit of due diligence is required. You know, there are reputable organisations, the Red Cross, etc. I'm sorry, but I've never heard of Comitas. And I have a little bit of knowledge of how the Italian bureaucracy works. We've got to be very, very careful. And I would have not a problem with the donation. We've got a big Italian community, and I know that there are relatives in that area that may have been affected. But we need to make sure that for the actual victim's sake, that the money gets to them. So I would just like to see some due diligence and maybe some recommendation from the Italian consul, etc., as to the most effective way of sending the money there.
That might be an alternative point to include in the recommendation.
Yes, I'm happy to.
Have a think about that whilst I'm taking the debate.
I'm happy to put in an alternative.
Debate. So have a think about changing the wording for that. Any other speakers, for or against? Councillor McCarthy.
I've just taken a quick Google search of Comitas, and I can't find any reference to the organisation. So I asked the question again. Where is the documentation, where is the information that Councillor Lawrence has brought to the table saying that this is an organisation that has been recommended for, whether it's Darebin Council or the Australian Government, whoever it might be, should be the appropriate place if Council was to decide to make a contribution to this cause. It is extremely problematic, Mr Mayor, for us to be asked to make a decision on an urgent item with a financial contribution with no notice and no information about who the organisation is. I think it is highly unreasonable and unfair for Councillor Greco to be forced into having to make a speculative declaration of an interest because he cannot be given any information.
We're talking about the matter, not Councillor Greco.
Well, Mr Mayor, I can't support this on the basis of what's going on here tonight. Surely we could get to the end of the council term without this sort of stuff. And Councillor Lawrence uses the word game playing. Well, it's not that hard to give us some information about who the organisation is.
Can you just
It's
read
not that
out?
hard. So I've done a search.
Question, Mr Mayor?
Thanks, Councillor Viola.
Or Committee of and it's been organised. And I'm happy to take any word in your name, as I've indicated,
Yeah.
but I'm not happy to delay providing a relief.
Okay, so I think we might need to have a look at the word committers to COASIT, because it doesn't say COASIT unless it's a typo. It's an umbrella group.
So it furthers my concern about what's going on here, Mr Mayor, because if Councillor Lawrence is aware that the organisation as listed is a subset of COASIT, and he did not relay that information, and Councillor Greco is a member of COASIT, then I don't think I need to say what it looks like, but it doesn't look good. It is very clear. It is very clear when councillors come into this chamber, they need to act in good faith.
Okay, Councillor
And
McCarthy.
I would ask Councillor Lawrence.
No, Councillor McCarthy, on the item, please.
I would ask Councillor
We're not
Lawrence
attacking councillors now.
to defer the matter.
We've gone the whole term, the whole year without this. I don't want to start tonight, okay? On the matter, please.
On that basis, I cannot support the item because it is I consider in bad faith, and it makes a mockery of what is a very serious situation.
Thank you.
And Mr Mayor, actually, now that it's been revealed...
You've spoken, Councillor Valella. No, you've spoken.
I may have a conflict. Now that it's been revealed that it's actually the
Do you
umbrella
or not?
organisation of COASIT, because I was a member of COASIT and they had serious governance issues.
Thank you. You've explained.
Okay,
Do you have a
very
conflict or
serious
not?
governance issues.
Do you have a conflict or not?
I think I've got a conflict.
Then declare it and leave the chamber.
I'm going to exit the chamber, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Due to a direct interest or indirect interest?
Well, I would say that it is indirect interest.
Indirect. Thank you. No further debate until Councillor Valella has left the chamber. Can I ask other councillors if they have any interest in this matter?
Do we know any other organisations that's involved?
Well, we've actually found it, so I don't have any interest at all. But it is COASIT. This is an umbrella group from what I understand. We've actually found it, so I think someone mixed up the spelling somewhere. Councillor Lawrence, spell check probably made the error there.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, this is not acceptable.
No, fair enough. We've got a debate occurring. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I too am going to speak against it. Look, this is it is a serious matter, and it's a tragedy what has occurred in Detroit. But the fact is that we, yes, in the past we've donated to other to other natural disasters. However, it's been done with much more. It's been done with due diligence. I don't feel that there's been due diligence tonight. We could have deferred this to the next council meeting, and because it would have been much better. Because I hate to say it, but this smells an awful lot like a stunt.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Any further debate? Councillor Lee.
Yes, I do. I have an amendment, Mr Mayor.
Let's hear it.
So the amendment is as follows, that Council donates to $10,000 to an Australian registered non-government organisation in providing appropriate welfare support for earthquake victims in central Italy, point number 1. Point number 2, prior to making that donation, offers us to consult with relevant authorities, e.g. Office of the Italian Consulate, and also provide a report back to the Council with all options.
Do we have enough time for a report?
Mr.
No, not a report. We won't have enough time in his current term to get a report. We can do point 1 though, Councillor Lee. Point 1, Councillor Lee, yes?
No, I want to have both.
Right. So it's got to be accepted by the mover.
So can I propose an amendment to Councillor Lee? Happy to second his matter, which would be that the point 2 comes to Council as an urgent item at the next meeting?
Correct. And provide a report at the next Council meeting as an urgent item. I'll amend that.
We can have a crack at that.
Just a question on that. Is that amount small enough to fit within the...
Parameters, yeah. It is. Yeah, it is. Right. So you're happy with that, Councillor?
Happy with that.
Okay, good.
As I've indicated, happy to hear any
Thank you.
organisation being
All right.
inserted in the motion.
On that basis, Mr Mayor, I would suggest that Councillor Greco and Councillor Valella, if it's been accepted, are allowed to return into the chamber.
It's been a
we
minute.
no longer have a conflict.
No, we can't.
because
Mr
they
Mayor,
said the company
this motion
name.
doesn't discount COASIT and all other organisations that Councillor Greco indicated has several.
I would like to recall Councillor Greco and Councillor Villela back because I'm
No, we
not
can't.
making any references. I'm not making any references to any particular organisation, unlike the one we're seeing on the screen right now.
I'll get some advice on that.
We can take the
Councillor Williams.
organisation name out.
Through you, Mr Mayor, both councillors have declared a conflict of interest based on the current motion.
Correct.
It has been amended, but depends on what the rest of the debate will be in relation to this matter and what organisations they may not discuss.
Just for the record, I will be speaking to my motion as non-government organisations providing appropriate welfare support to the earthquake victims in Central Italy.
Yep. And Councillor Lawrence has accepted that, yes? Yep. Okay, all right. I'm going to put that to a vote.
Sorry, Mr Mayor. The motion as read by Councillor Lee makes no reference to any organisations.
Correct.
Custom and practice is that councillors are required to declare an interest in relation to organisations that they have direct interests in. There are no organisations listed, and so I think you're out of order if you don't allow Councillor Greco and Councillor Villela to be aware of the new motion and the fact that they may not have an interest in it. It is their democratic right as elected councillors to be able to debate a matter before us, and it's the principle of the matter. We're not talking about organisations. That will be dealt with in the report that Councillor Lee has called for.
If we can get them in time. It's urgent item. Yeah. All right.
I just want to submit this first so that can be put on
I'm making
the
the
screen for
decision.
everybody to see.
I'm making the decision, Councillor Lee. Thank you.
I would like councillors to
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Thank you.
But I do want
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Thank you. Let me finish. 46 days to go. We're going to carry on like this. Seriously? Can we ask Councillor Villela and Councillor Greco to enter back?
I'm trying to clean up a mess here. Mess not my mom making.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. We've heard you. Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Greco. We've actually had an amendment to this urgent item with no reference to committers or COASIT. So if we can actually have that provided to our minute takers over here so they can put it on the screen so that councillors who are out of the room can actually see what we're actually voting on now. And we'll wait till it appears. Thank you. There's our new motion, okay?
Just a slight change. I did put down an Australian registered non-government organisation for clarity.
To a registered Australian and non-government.
An Australian registered non-government
First.
organisation.
Okay. Pretty simple, guys. Yes? No conflicts there from anyone? We hope not. I'm going to go straight to a vote on that.
Yeah.
All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Okay, we'll move on to consideration reports. So those who have the agenda, we're now on to 6.1.
I believe we need to move the standing orders, Mr. Mayor. Do we need to? No.
There was no suspension of orders. We just moved the order a bit. We're on to 6.1, 2015-16 financial statements and performance statement. Moved Councillor Walsh, seconded Councillor Seatis. Councillor Walsh, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. For the year ended 30th of June 2016, Council achieved an operating surplus of $20.6 million, which was 13.18 million ahead of schedule. In overall terms, this is a significantly high surplus and reflects the unspent DCP contributions. In regards to capital works, Council has spent $21.44 million for the financial year which ended on the 30th of June, and which was 6.10 less than the annual budget, and Council's cash and investment position at the end of June was a positive bank balance. And finally, Mr. Mayor, in relation to the performance of the 30 indicators, which are audited by Fargo, Victorian Auditor General's Office, 21 exceeded or improved in comparison to the results of the previous year. And as a member of the audit committee, which is why I'm moving this, the representative from Fargo has on the audit committee has been reasonably happy with council's performance.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Seatis.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just before I speak further, I would like to seek your indulgence with the mover that the references to Raz Yadev as CEO as contained on page 7 of the certification page.
And 45 of the financials as well, so there's two we need to change.
That we provide for the permission of Mr. Dev for Mr. Hamilton in his acting capacity as CEO to sign the requisite areas of the report. And
could you speak up?
I'll speak to the other parts of it as well.
I'm happy with that.
We have to do it.
Yeah.
Councillor Seatis.
Mr. Mayor, essentially there are three elements associated with the report. All of them are contingent, of course, in terms of the Victorian Auditor General's Office signing off in terms of giving us feedback in terms of our fiscal position over the last financial year. But contingent on that, of course, is that the report itself was signed by the CEO in the relevant areas of the report, and specifically we have obviously the annual financial report, financial statements and the performance statement of the Council. So in that circumstance, it enables Mr. Hamilton in his acting capacity to sign those to essentially get that process underway at that level. So it's more an administrative tidy up, Mr. Mayor, so that the process is not held up.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seatis. Any other speakers? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While this is a positive result for our financials, I do want to draw Council's attention to a couple of not insignificant items. The first item is that we've experienced a $5 million decrease in operating grants, and that's through reduced funding through our home and community care program as provided by the federal government. The other reduction we've had experienced is $1.3 million decrease in capital grants. Those two decreases in grants alone, in the order of $6.3 million, more than offset any increase that we experience in the rates. So when our resident starts arguing or getting upset about our rates, perhaps I can ask them to redirect their interest and questions to our federal government and ask our federal government through a local member as to why the residents of Darebin are being penalised through reduction in operational grants and also in capital grants in this city.
Any other speakers? Councillor Greco.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'd like to say a few words in relation to our financial statement. First of all, as it's been noted, it's a big surplus. It's $20 million surplus, and I take on board what Councillor Lee has said. But it is a big surplus, and actually puts this council in good stead in terms of the next council, that it provides a lot of money in the coffers to do a lot of future works, particularly capital works programs. Our population is increasing, as we know, in the city of Darebin, and there's a greater demand on capital works projects that need to be done. So we're in a strong financial footing to confront that. The other thing that I also note is that there has been $6.1 million less capital expenditure this financial year, and I really feel that in future years we would need to up the capital works program, because there is like I've just said, a demand out there for improved capital works spending, particularly on refurbishing and renewing some of our aging assets, and we really need to get that capital works program way and above what it's currently been, in order for us to address the needs in our community. Having said that, overall, I still consider it to be a very positive result, and I think that the next council can start with a lot of money in the bank and with a great surplus, in order for them to set the priorities for the future 4 years.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Any other speakers? If there's no further speakers, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 6.2, the amendment C153, corrections to the residential break zones, schedules 2, 3 and 5.
Happy to move that.
Moved, Councillor McCarthy, seconded by Councillor Lee. Thank you. Councillor McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, having read this, would note that when you go through the process of setting up a planning scheme amendment to designate particular parts of the city appropriately for low, medium, or in some cases larger than medium zoning, because of the type of land it is, that there are a whole lot of conditions that are required in that process. And what we have here is a report that addresses a paperwork deficit that took place at the Residential Zone Standing Advisory Committee, whereupon a number of important documents that Council had submitted as part of its zoning requirements were summarily omitted from the Minister's approval. These requirements relate to what are described as garden apartments, so medium density apartments in certain zones within the city of Darebin. The major one, of course, is the Northland Urban Renewal Precinct. And without the components that we're considering adopting this evening, which we have previously adopted but which were omitted by the Minister and the Department, we could have poor urban outcomes. So this is the problem that we have when documentation that's prepared in goodwill by our officers goes to the Department and to the Minister's desk, and certain documents aren't signed off in the way that they should be. If I'm correct, that's my understanding of what this effectively means. So we're righting a wrong here tonight, hopefully, and assuming that this will be supported by both the Department and by the Minister, will ensure that better design and hopefully good design outcomes are achieved than some of the very poor design outcomes that have been proposed in some of the locations designated here in this report. This is the request for a planning scheme amendment to insert those requirements. They are design requirements relating to setbacks and relating to garden apartments. And essentially, if this is approved, then it gets us back to where we intended to be some months ago.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Lee, anything to add?
Just very quickly, just goes to the substance of the actual amendments as part of the C153. These are, although relatively minor amendments, they do make an important impact on the design outcome of those particular areas, namely the areas around the Northland Urban Renewal Precinct and also the Reservoir Activity Centre, which are the two major activity centres that this particular amendment applies to. The minor amendments relate to the necessary setbacks and the wall on boundaries, which would achieve a greater amount of residential amenity, not only for those people who might be living in it, but also to the neighbouring properties as well. So hopefully this will get a seal of approval and we can operate with greater degree of certainty.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. If there's no further comment or debate, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 6.3, the Merry Creek Bridge feasibility study. Move, Councillor Walsh. Seconder, Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Walsh.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and I'm moving with option
4 in the report. Thank you.
Option 4, if I'm just correct, Mr. Mayor, is the recommendation as read.
Yep. Yes. Thank you very much. I believe that option 4 gives us the best chance to actually start this project, and a lot of tireless work has been done to get so far into the process. And can I thank Juliet Hall and Helen McDonald, who are here tonight, for their boundless enthusiasm and determination to get a positive outcome here. Indeed, option 4 is really the only option, and it's clear that it's what the residents want. If council is unsure about this, can I remind them that a petition of over 1,000 Darebin residents was tabled at this council last year. So that shows the in the community the interest and the drive that something has to happen here. And so let's go through the reasons why option 4 is the main recommendation is the best option. Option 1 would kill the project and say there is no problem here, and when there clearly is an issue here. Option 2, it's not what the people want. People need. Part of the problem is that there's no crossing in between Arthurton Road and Norman Bean Avenue. Option 3 will cost more, and it's deferring consideration to a later date. So option 4 is, I believe, is the best option, and I commend this to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor McCarthy, a seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to acknowledge the extraordinary efforts of residents, predominantly from the Darebin side, but also from the Moreland side, over, in fact, many years to bring this about, particularly the residents who have led the charge over the last year or two to make this happen, because this project has been on the Council's books in various forms for a number of years. It has even appeared in council minutes going back several years, and significantly, it was actually in the City of Moreland's own transport strategy going back a number of years as well. So it's not a new concept, but the push is new and the push is great, and the push has garnered some 1,400 signatures from one of the petitions, and of course a great deal more interest as well from people in the general community around Beavers Road. There's also great support from key organisations like Ceres, and of course a key factor in this is the residential development that's happening at the end of Beavers Road, which of course shifts and changes how we perceive what's taking place there. We are unlocking a new opportunity for active transport by virtue of supporting this, if we do, and I would strongly urge councillors to do so, because there are dozens of families every day, and in fact the numbers are even greater. There are numbers significant numbers of people crossing and seeking to cross around that area in a safe as possible way. And at the moment, the end of Beavers Road is a dead end. It meets the creek. There is a perfect point there to get across and continue off-road along onto the Merry Creek Trail and through the back streets up to East Brunswick Primary, where a number of our families are actually zoned for in that Thornbury and Northcote area. So that is the designated school for them, and the only way they can get there is having to travel on the roads. And if you've ever tried to ride a bike along or walk along Arthurton Road or parts of Normanby Avenue, it can be treacherous.
Thank you.
So this is well needed.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy.
So I'll thank you, and I just want to lastly say thank you to the officers, because the officers have come at this with great intentions, and their work has been terrific in working with our residents.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lee, something new?
Thank you. Yes, I do. I just like to ask a question through you to our acting CEO, which I did put the question on notice, because I did receive a representation from a bicycle users group that by going ahead with this Merry Creek Bridge feasibility study, that you would not affect particularly the Bundoora Park Bridge renewal. So I just want to get some clarification through you to our acting CEO.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so the works for the Bundoora Bridge would proceed as per the original priority. They were delayed for some maintenance works, but everything would be considered as part of the normal budget process, but they wouldn't move the priority base.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further debate. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors.
Can we have that noted as unanimous, please, Mr Mayor?
As unanimous vote by the minute takers. Item 6.4, the Leisure, Public Realm and Parks Capital Update. Move, Councillor Lee.
I'll move.
Seconded. Councillor McCarthy. Councillor Lee.
I also had a slight amendment which I did circulate to officers.
That was circulated
and
on the screen.
Councillors earlier.
Yep, we got that.
Yep.
And the second is happy.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy, and thank you, Mr Mayor. This report outlines some of the changes to our Capital Works project as a result of various projects as they've been brought online. I'll speak very briefly about GH Mock Reserve because originally $600,000 was set aside for the pavilion redevelopment as part of a fire that destroyed part of the pavilion. However, upon closing inspection, it was found that the damage wasn't as significant as once thought, and therefore there is no need for that pavilion redevelopment to go ahead. However, I don't want that money just to go back to our operating reserves. As Councillor Greco said just a minute ago, under our financial statements, we do have an issue with our Capital Works project, and I do note in the financial statements that our asset renewal gap is still not within the Dargo standards. So rather than to have that money going back to the savings, I would like to see a report coming back with possibly some directions as to where we might want to continue to spend that Capital Works money as was originally intended. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Second, Councillor McCarthy.
I don't have a great deal to add. It's pretty straightforward, as you'd see. I think that Councillor Lee is correct in proposing that a discussion needs to happen about that money, the $600,000, because what we do see from time to time in the council budget process is that money isn't allocated and it winds up being unspent at the end of the financial year, and that's a terrible loss for our community when there are viable projects that could be funded in that period. So let's see what comes forward, or in fact, let's see what the new council in their deliberations considers to do with that money.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Okay, if there's no further debate or discussion, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item is 6.5, the bowls, clubs, paying rates and lease licence fees. We have a recommendation there. Someone move that, please. Councillor Walsh, seconder. Councillor Lee. Councillor Walsh, just briefly if you need to speak to it.
No, I'm happy to move through.
Nothing to add, Mr Mayor.
There's no debate or comments from councillors. I'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item is an instrument delegation, 6.6, authorising to appoint officers to enforce the Planning Enforcement Act. Move, Councillor Cedars. Seconded, Councillor Grego. Nothing to add to that? Okay, I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Item 7, consideration of responsive notice of motions. We have none there.
Yes.
Item 8, notice of motion, 8.1, increased police numbers in Darebin. This is Councillor Walsh's, is it? Councillor Walsh.
And I did second with a slight amendment as well, I think.
Yep, Councillor Walsh moved. Councillor Lee seconded.
I'm happy to accept that. I think this this is simply about increasing, asking for more police, and indeed, indeed we did have representation tonight from a resident concerned about this. We have seen an increase in several fronts. We have seen in several types of crimes. We have seen an increase in crime in Darebin in the past year, and when the last crime statistics were released in April this year, there was a sharp increase from April last year. So that's what this is about. I'm going to leave it there just because we had most of the debate last council meeting.
Councillor Walsh. Councillor Lee.
Just very briefly, I just want to highlight my amendment because quite often the increase in crime numbers cannot be solved single-handedly by increasing police numbers alone. I think that statement is supported not only by the police itself but also other organisations. So, in line with the intent of the motion, I think it's important that we also look at other crime reduction figures, crime reduction resources. For example, we know that problem gambling and alcohol and drug intake also contribute to other problems. So if we do address the problem at the core, in other words, some of those social factors rather than the criminal factors, we may achieve a longer and more sustainable outcome in the community.
Thank you, Councillor.
Can I also raise CCTV?
No. Councillor Greco.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I support the general sentiment of this motion, and I particularly support the amendment that's been put there by, or the alteration that's been put there by Councillor Lee, because it actually, research is showing that a straight out law and order approach just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It has to be much more complex, the approach, and I'm glad that that second point is there, that we look at other crime reduction methods or resources, particularly, and I know that Victoria Police, and particularly the command here in the Darebin Northcote area, in this region, are very strong on community policing, which means that engagement with the community, engagement with young people as a way of deflecting them away from crime-related activities. So I'm glad that we put that point in. Yes, you may need increased police numbers, but at the same time, you need a comprehensive approach in order to ensure that that offenders are given options and alternatives to engage in this particular activity.
Thank you, Councillor Greco. Councillor McCarthy.
Mr Mayor, I'll speak in favour of this, and I think Councillor Greco's hit the nail on the head with Councillor Lee's amendment. One of the problems that we have, and I'm not confident that we are going to see any increase in police resources as a result of this motion. I'll just say that. I don't think this is going to unleash new resources, but it might trigger some new thinking, and that would be great. One of the biggest problems we actually have in the City of Darebin, Mr Mayor, is that in some of our places where we have crimes against the person that are occurring, that we have property and deception offences, and in fact also other offences that aren't listed up there, is actually due to some of the passive or lack of passive surveillance that takes place. And I draw councillors' attention to the fact that when institutions or organisations like VicTrack and Metro don't maintain their sites, then that develops a perception or a perception of a lack of safety, and in turn that also attracts unhealthy activities in those locations. That then leads to not only a perception of crime, but also in some cases an increase in crime-based activity, and that's not always in the social space, but it is sometimes as well. So in our advocacy, this is a fairly simplistic motion, but in our advocacy we need to be talking about the full gamut of things that actually reduce both crime and also the fear of crime, because we have people avoiding certain public spaces because they don't feel safe. Perception. And that's the perception. And as a result, people don't go there, and the only people that do go there are the people that have no choice, and then they are put in a vulnerable situation. And all we need to look at is the Royal Commission into Family Violence, and some of the information that came in through that said that people, if they don't feel safe, they won't seek help. And so let's hopefully see some more mature and developed responses in the future.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. There's no further. Councillor Lawrence?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I was happy to support this last time it was presented, and it's been finessed a bit, and I'm happy to support it again. Obviously, in terms of a broad approach that's been signalled by Councillor Lee's amendment, we have a very strong examples of that in regards to Northlands, where the council, Northlands management and police have engaged in both observation, increased surveillance and engagement with youth to actually create 50% reductions in crime. So that's a very living example, and it's not a theory, it's happened there. However, I still do raise concern about police numbers in specialist areas, especially traffic, drink driving, and the offences and antisocial behaviour we experienced in Bundoora, where we need specialist task forces to come in and assist with the council to actually address some really entrenched antisocial behaviour. So it's not about raw numbers, it's really about getting those specialist teams when we need them, and obviously understand they're needed in Thomastown and we'll see in other places too.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. That concludes the debate. I'll put it to a vote. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, councillors.
No,
We'll note it as a unanimous vote. Okay. Notice of motion. We've got any more notice of motions here? We've got
Yes. No. Two more.
two more.
Two more.
Two more, which didn't make the agenda, but they were circulated. Over here. 8.2, the North Aquatic Centre feasibility study, moved by Councillor Walsh. The second to that.
I'm happy to second it. Before I do though, can we just get some clarification in relation to this? Because
I'd like that too.
I'm not clear whether the diving boards have been excluded as part of the feasibility study, so I just don't want us to be moving a redundant motion.
Yeah. Officers?
Through Mr Mayor, my reading of the notice of motion is to include the diving boards as an option in the feasibility study. And I'm not sure whether that was the intent of the motion, but that's the
yes.
Perhaps we could just, if Councillor Walsh is happy to add the words, in fact include the option of, because there may be something better that might be proposed as part of the feasibility study. We don't want to limit it to just what we had. There might be something better that can be considered as part of it. So if Councillor Walsh would be happy to include the words the option of, that might give us scope to go for something that's even a bit more bolder in the new site.
I thought the intent is to include.
Is it on the screen?
Mr. Mayor, can we see the motion on the screen?
Where is it?
Yeah.
It's feasibility. Have we got it on the screen? It's coming.
Thank you.
So the options have been included there. That was originally intended.
Can I ask a question, Mr Mayor?
Yes, Councillor Lowe.
What are the implications of this? I don't... is there a financial implication? What is...
spelled out in the...
What is it? What... could just some elaboration. There doesn't seem to be a preamble. Hasn't been spoken to yet. I'm really not too sure what it's all about.
Well, there's no, it's just including it in the feasibility study, which is already underway anyway, so.
And sorry, just put another point of clarification. And there's no reference to a diving pool in the feasibility study?
For you, Mr Mayor.
I might get an officer to comment on that, because, Katrina?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the feasibility study is not specifying anything at this stage. It's open for
so it's redundant. It's
including the option of discussing whether we should have diving pools is very issue with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, that's clear.
Do we want to include water in the pool?
Do we have water in the pool? I don't know. All right, we've got to move in a seconder.
Make sure it's chlorinated.
Just a question, Mr Mayor. Wasn't the decommissioning of this diving
a couple of years ago,
safety aspects of the actual pool?
The report will explain that, I'm sure.
Investigation.
Okay. I'll put that to a vote, Councillor.
I was going to speak to it.
3 minutes, Councillor.
That's the thing, so I'm entitled to speak to it.
Your time started.
Thanks. Part of it, look, the diving pool is part of Northcote Pool's history. I've been a long supporter of the redevelopment of Nark, and those of us who have been in the area will have fond memories of the old diving pool at Northcote Pool, and the site now is laying there. Looking almost derelict with, and it's just used for storage. It's I believe that this will give Northcote Pool a bit of a niche, as well as giving it a back to kind of almost back to the future type type thing. It will because there aren't that many diving pools in left in Melbourne, and I don't believe there are any. I believe the closest diving board to Darwin would be residents would have to go at the moment have to go to either to MSAC or to no, it's not.
Did they remove it?
Councillor Walsh.
Or to Belmore Road in Hallwood. We're not necessarily talking about a 10 metre platform. It will just, and we're just talking about the springboard, 1 metre and a 3 metre, and that one of the two pools that we toured earlier this year at Whitehorse at Surrey Hills, they of course did include a diving pool as in the redevelopment of the Whitehorse pool at Surrey Park.
Thank you, Councillor
I'll
Walsh.
move the motion be put, Mr Mayor, so that we can get
all those in favour? Those against? Carried. And I know why we removed the diving pool there, Councillor. See this many years ago. All those in favour, please stand. I name Councillor Villala, Councillor Greco, Councillor Walsh, Councillor Lawrence, Cetus, Williams, McCarthy and Lee, and those against Fontana. Next item is 8.3, the Darabin Olympians. Can that be put on screen, please? Yes? Have we got that on screen there?
Happy to second it.
Move Councillor Walsh, second Councillor Lee. I'm not going to go to a debate or comment, I'm just going to put that to a vote. Please. Yeah. All those in favour? Thank you, I'm happy to write them on too.
Should have done that anyway.
Yeah, there we have to. That concludes our notice of motion. Urgent business has been dealt with, Mr Atkins, CEO. General business, there is none? No. Petitions, any petitions from councillors?
Mr Mayor, look, I consulted with Mr Hamilton before the meeting. I've received a petition. I think Councillor Walsh and possibly Councillor Cetus might have also received it. It's been sent from residents who they haven't provided signatures, they've just provided their names. So instead of submitting it through the petition process, it relates to the need for a school crossing supervisor on the corner of Yarra Street and Heidelberg Road, so councillors are aware. I'll submit it to to Mr Hamilton and potentially bring it to another council meeting.
Yeah, so we hold it back to the next meeting. Yeah.
Yep.
It's got to follow the proper format.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I have a petition, Mr Mayor.
In its proper format? I hope so. So let's have it moved. I need to have a second.
I'll just, it's a petition from residents calling on council to support an initial $2 million capital pledge to the Gilbert Road tram extension to facilitate that and also match previous commitments of $3.6 million for the Route 86 upgrades.
Second.
I'll second.
Second, Councillor Williams. That's it. That's accepted.
Can we? I think we need to have how many petitioners listed?
Mr Mayor, there's 161 petitioners who I believe 99% local in that. Some people have got their friends to sign.
So let's go to the CEO or next council meeting for a response.
I'm in your hands, Mr.
I think we'll give it to the CEO to address. Okay, that's so that motion. Yeah. So moved Councillor, who are you, Lawrence? Seconded Councillor Williams.
Just a procedure thing. I'm not sure if it's... don't the petitions have to be copied and copies being provided to all councillors when they are tabled?
Not more.
That's my understanding.
No.
Can we get some clarification on the
They
process?
should have to.
I don't want a copy of everybody's names and addresses and things like that.
We're going to report back anyhow, so...
Is that the point,
No, we don't have to.
Williams?
I've just been advised, no, we don't, Councillor Gregor, no. Okay. So that's been accepted. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour?
Yeah, but that was the reason why
Carried,
we don't
thank you.
get...
Are there any other... Thank you. No other petitions, councillors? Thank you. No. Moving along, we have item 12, records of assemblies of councillors, 12.1 to so I move that. Move Councillor McCarthy, second Councillor Walsh. All those in favour? That's carried. Report by mayors and councillors, item 13. Most of the councillors lodged these. Move Councillor McCarthy, second Councillor Lee. All those in favour? That's carried. We now go to item 14, consideration of reports considered confidential.
I move that we're moving to camera in order to consider the confidential items.
Councillor Lee has moved to go to camera. Second, Councillor Cetus. All those in favour? That's carried. Members of the gallery, I need you to vacate the chambers for goodness knows how long. We have refreshments at the rear of us. We'll join you shortly after we consider these items in camera. Thank you for attending.